dancers, my name's Greer. I'm the Pointe Shoe Specialist here at Discount Dance Supply. Today I'm going to be talking to you about breaking in your pointe shoes. So there are lots of lovely videos on YouTube that I'm sure you've seen all about breaking in pointe shoes. And what I want you to remember is that it's a case-by-case basis, and what works for one kind of dancer might not work for you. So some dancers take their shoes right out of the box or bag, sew the ribbons in elastic, and that's how they go into class, performance, whatever. They don't like any kind of break-in on their shoes, especially if you're working already with a pretty soft shoe, something like a Chicotte Veronese that's already very soft. That doesn't take a whole lot of break-in. Something like a Gainer Minden doesn't take really any break-in. The shank is the shank, the shoe is the shoe. There's not a whole lot you can do to manipulate that. But what I am going to be sharing are a couple different tips and tricks if you do want to break in your shoes. Always consult with your teacher if you're a student about breaking in your shoes, and don't go haywire. I say, start with a little bit and then work your way up, because you can always break in your shoes more. You can't really do the opposite and bring them back once you have already broken them in. Jet glue can only do so much for you. Okay, so say you've just bought a brand new pair of pointe shoes. You take them out of the bag. So to break in shoes, what you really want to do is just make them kind of more malleable and kind of a little easier to get over on, especially if you're going straight into a performance. So maybe you don't have a lot of time in class to break in your shoes, you're going right on stage to perform. You don't have a lot of time to sit in class, do a lot of plie releves and get the shoes nice and malleable and flexible. These are some ways to kind of get you there a little bit more quickly. So you don't just want to start bending your shoe any old place on the shank. You want to be sure you're bending it towards the top at the highest point of where your arch is, because if you start breaking really low, that's going to make you kind of knuckle in those shoes. It's not going to have a pretty line. You want to have it break in at a high point of your arch, the highest point of your arch where the arch meets the heel. So, put that shoe on and even mark on the shoe a tiny bit. If you're up on releve, or when you're just pointing out in front of you where the highest point of your arch is on your shoe, that's really where you want to start breaking in the shoe. So really, if you just put your thumb and forefinger on the shoe and just start moving it back and forth a little bit on the heel, that starts breaking down the shoe's material just a little bit. Again, pointe shoes are just kind of layered natural materials with paste, so it just takes a little bit to make it more malleable. So after you've done this a little bit, there's also, you can put it in a door and close it gently. Don't slam your pointe shoes in a door, but you can put it in a door right here and just kind of use the door as something to bend the shoe a little bit into the door frame like this. So you don't want to go crazy. Again, a little goes a long way, especially something that's already a pretty soft shoe. A Grishko, hard shank, you're going to need to put a little more elbow grease into it. But something like this is just kind of a standard medium shank. You don't need to do a whole lot. I'm just kind of bending it back and forth, getting it moving nice and flexible right at the high point of the arch where that would be. You also usually want to flatten your crown a little bit. So that's just, between your two hands, flattening the crown out. So the shoe kind of gets a little bit more width to it. It's a little more comfortable and a little less stiff on stage. It's also a good idea to kind of bang out your shoes. Pointe shoes are very, very hard, therefore they're very loud on stage, especially if you're doing a lot of jumps or petit allegro, something like that. It's a pretty loud noise. So if you have to have these on stage pretty soon, I would take them outside on some kind of concrete, and you want to just kind of bang these out, and you can go pretty hard with that. The box and platform are a very hard part of the shoe, so don't be afraid to really bang out those shoes hard on the ground. You want to be hitting right here where you would be landing coming down from a jump. So you want to be hitting this part of the shoe and just bang it out maybe 15 times. Do the same on the other foot, really bang that out a lot too. Makes it nice and quiet on stage. Another thing you can do, and I'm going to show you one that I have already done, is some pointe shoes are made with a full shank, meaning the shank is fully the whole length of the shoe. Other pointe shoes are made with a 3/4 shank, so that already ends kind of at the highest point of the arch, like we were talking about where you want to break it in. However, you can 3/4 your own shoes if you have full shank, full pointe shoes. you can 3/4 those yourself. Be careful with this, ask for help if you're a student, ask for a parent's help because you will need something sharp like a box cutter or exacto knife to do this. There's no coming back from this. So once you do it, it's done. So be sure this is what you want to do to your shoes. Don't just do it, on a whim. Make sure that's what you want to do. So what you would do is you would take a shoe. This kind of inside sole lining here usually pulls up like this guy did pretty easily on most shoes. And a lot of them have a little nail right here in the shoe. You want to mark with a pen or pencil right above that nail. That's usually the highest point of the arch. That's where you would want to 3/4 something. Again, you can put this on your foot and measure exactly where you want that to be. High point of the arch, don't do it any lower. High point of the arch, measure that right there, and really just take an exacto knife and cut it down. And then you want to kind of shave it down a little bit where you've cut it, because you don't just want like a straight edge on the shoe. That's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable in your heel. So after you have cut it about here, a little below the nail, then you would want to shave it down a little bit with your exacto knife so it's just become a little more smooth. Then you would just take this back down over it and just paste it back down. You can like dab a tiny bit of jet glue, Gorilla Glue, kind of whatever, just to keep that binding the lining down a little bit. So I have one that I have already done. I think it's this one. Yes, so in this shoe, I already cut the shank down here. So back down in there, that is the shank. It did go all the way to here, and I cut it down to here, and I also shaved it, and then I put this back down, and I haven't glued it because I wanted to show you guys, but then you would just kind of glue this back down, and then your shoe is already 3/4. So that is a really good option if you want to stick with the shoe that you have now. You don't want to go to something 3/4, but you want that look. So most of these things I would always be sure, again, to ask your teacher about. Really the easiest way to break in your pointe shoes is put them on and do a ton of plie releves, plie eleves at the bar, lots of roll throughs, just to really get that nice flexibility in the shoe, and you can really manipulate the shoe the way that you want it to be. Another good thing to do is to put on your pointe shoes and then kind of crouch down and roll over the shoe right here. That makes it really kind of get its mobility on the top part of the box as well. Helps you also stretch that top part of the foot. It makes the top arch nice and pretty, so you get kind of a 2-for-1 right there. And then again, just kind of working through things at the bar. The more time you can take to manipulate your shoes, the better. So I hope this has been helpful, and thanks for watching.